The French, with 73,000 men and 139 guns, deployed on a long front with their left flank on Mount Zurlin under the command of Generals Lens and Bernadotte and Prince Murat's cavalry corps. The center was commanded by Soult and the right wing, in the town of Telnitz, was commanded by Legrand. General Davout had to arrive by forced marches from the south to help Legrand. In reserve the Imperial Guard and Oudinot's Grenadiers. Napoleon, located in the rear, had concentrated most of his troops in the center and left, hidden by Mount Zurlin and leaving his right flank apparently weakened, inviting the Allies to attack that position. On the other side of the battlefield, separated by the Goldbach River, the Russian and Austrian army consisted of 85,000 soldiers and 278 cannons. They would follow the plan devised by the Austrian General Weyrother, who proposed concentrating their attack against the weak French right flank and then turning north and surrounding the rest of the army. While this was happening, they would launch another attack against the enemy's left flank. The men of Grand Duke Constantine's Russian Imperial Guard were kept in reserve, near the town of Krzenowitz. A little further from the front line, Emperors Alexander and Francis, together with Field Marshal Kutuzov, watched the battle. At dawn on December 2, 1805, a dense fog was rising over Austerlitz as the Allies set out. The main attack was carried out by the Russian General Buxhowden. His forces were led by the Austrian Kienmeyer, followed by the column of the Russian General Doktorov. His first objective was to conquer the town of Telnitz. After heavy fighting, the French were expelled from the town, but the delay in the arrival of new Allied forces allowed Davout to come to Legrand's aid and retake Telnitz. Another Allied column, under the command of General Langeron, descended from Pratzen with the objective of taking the town of Sokolnitz as part of the attack on the French right flank. pressure of these forces finally caused the French to abandon both towns. It seemed that Weyrother's plan was being a success. However, the battle was proceeding as Napoleon had planned, as the columns of Allied generals Przybysky and Kelleraf were also heading towards his right flank, weakening the center of his own lines. The fog dissipated and the Allies began to cross to the other bank of the river. Several regiments of dragoons under Davout attacked them, forcing them to retreat. Subsequently, the French attacked Telnitz again, expelling the Allied troops. Friant, leader of the vanguard of Davout's forces, turned north. After a successful attack, he managed to retake Sokolnitz and drive the enemies to the other side of the stream. Later, he confronted Przybysky's column. The determination of the French drove back the Russian forces. Fighting had begun on the French left flank. The Russian general Bagration together with the cavalry corps of the Austrian Prince Liechtenstein launched an attack against the forces of the French general Lannes. French, supported by Bernadotte's formations and Murat's cavalry, managed to repel him. At this time, the defensive part of Napoleon's plan was over. The Allies' encircling maneuver had failed and now the French went on the attack. In the center, two divisions of General Soult, under the command of Saint-Hilaire and Vandamme, advanced towards the Pratzen Heights. Having reached their objective, they engaged the Austrian forces defending Pratzen. Napoleon ordered his left flank to advance and attack Bagration. Commander Kutuzov, faced with this new threat, did not dare to weaken that flank to reinforce its harassed center. Initially, Bernadotte's troops advanced to the town of Blasowitz to support Soult's forces further south. However, the Russian infantry and Liechtenstein's cavalry retook the town and the front on that flank was stabilized. In the center, Soult's divisions faced fierce Austrian resistance at Pratzen. The artillery that they had brought there was decisive and they managed to conquer the town. To the north, Lons managed to get hold of Blasowitz again. Taking advantage of the space, Murat's cavalry charged to open a gap between Bagration and Kutuzov's forces. Heavy fighting took place between horsemen on both sides, but eventually the Russians retreated and the French were able to advance and support the attack on the Allied center. Napoleon ordered his elite units, the Imperial Guard and Oudinot's grenadiers, to advance towards the heights of Pratzen. He, along with his staff, went there to better observe the battle. On their right flank, Davout's French were resisting their enemies despite their triple numbers. The Allies then decided to launch their reserve forces into the attack. 3,000 elite soldiers of the Russian Imperial Guard, under the command of Duke Constantine, advanced from the vicinity of the city of Austerlitz. They advanced against the positions of General Van Damme, who was waiting for them in formation on the Pratzen Heights. Although they arrived tired after climbing the slope, the charge managed to break up the first line of the French. However, they suffered heavy casualties when they clashed with the second line of defenders, which was supported by artillery. The Russians withdrew to reorganize further back. Seeing this, Napoleon ordered Van Damme to advance to pressure them. In doing so, he left his flank exposed, a fact that was taken advantage of by Constantine, who ordered the Imperial Guard cavalry to charge. In an attempt to protect himself, Van Damme ordered his soldiers to remain on the defensive. The Russians then detached several pieces of mounted artillery and fired them at the French, causing heavy casualties. Napoleon then sent Marshal Bessières to help Van Damme, and an even duel began between the cavalry of both sides. Around 2 p.m., the Russian Imperial Guard retreated. The center of the Russian line no longer existed and the Allied army was divided in two. Observing the battlefield, Napoleon saw that on the left flank, Bagration had retreated to the east and was holding his men in formation. Being so far from his own lines, it would be difficult to try to surround them, so he decided to turn south and destroy the flank of Buxhouden, who was still fighting against Davout and Friant. Soult's divisions and the Imperial Guard headed towards the Allied flank. At the same time that the French attacked from the north, the forces of Davout and Legrand ordered a general charge. The Allied battalions began to retreat from this combined attack, spreading their fear to the troops still waiting to enter combat. The entire Allied army began to withdraw in the direction of Austerlitz. Allied generals Kienmayer and Doktorov tried to cover the retreat for as long as possible. Napoleon ordered his troops to block that escape route, forcing the Allies to flee across the frozen lake south of the town of Telmitz. Meanwhile, Bagration's flank retreated towards Austerlitz in formation. At 4:30 the battle was over. 1,300 French had died in the battle and 7,000 had been wounded. The Allied army had 15,000 dead, 12,000 soldiers were taken prisoners, and they had also lost 180 cannons. There was no chase by the victors as they were exhausted and it had started to snow. The Battle of the Three Emperors, as it became known, became a decisive victory for Napoleon as it spelled the end of the Third Coalition. The next day the Austrians asked for an armistice and the decimated Russian army returned to their country. On December 26, 1805, a peace treaty was signed in Pressburg between Napoleon and Francis I, by which Austria ceded to France and its allies territories in Italy, Tyrol and other Alpine territories and the payment of a large indemnity. The Holy Roman Empire was dissolved in 1806 after the abdication of Emperor Francis, and the Confederation of the Rhine was created, made up of 16 German states and kingdoms allied to Napoleon. Austerlitz was a masterpiece of Napoleonic military leadership and consolidated his empire, which for the next 8 years would dominate Europe.